The wedding of Queen Yuna and Tay was the largest event in Valari history. Representatives from over 300 star systems came to witness it. Ships filled the space around Varos, blocking out the light from distant stars. The whole galaxy was watching. Tay stood in his dressing room, looking at himself in the mirror. He wore ceremonial armor made specially for him, lighter than the Valari version, colored in blue and white to represent both Earth and Varos. It fit perfectly, making him look taller and stronger than he really was. But inside, he was still the same ordinary teacher from Bizon. A knock came at the door. When Tay opened it, he found Minji standing there. She was the servant who had been assigned to him since his first day on Varos. Young and kind, she had become something like a friend. "They are ready for you," she said. Her Valari face was usually hard to read, but today, Tay could see something like happiness in her dark eyes. "The entire galaxy is waiting." Tay took a deep breath. "Then I should not keep them waiting any longer." The ceremony took place in the Great Hall of the palace. It was the largest room Tay had ever seen, with ceilings that disappeared into light and walls covered in crystals that reflected every color imaginable. Thousands of guests filled the seats, from tiny beings no larger than his hand to giants that made even the Valari look small. Music played strange, beautiful music that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Tay walked down the central aisle, trying not to trip on his own feet. He kept his eyes forward, focusing on the figure waiting for him at the end. Queen Yuna stood before the ancient altar, dressed in armor that shone like the sun. Gold and silver patterns covered her body, each one representing a different part of Valari history. Her forearms were bare, except for ceremonial bracelets that hummed with power. She was the most beautiful thing Tay had ever seen. When he reached her, she offered her lower right hand. He took it without hesitation. Her skin was cool and smooth against his palm. "You came," she said quietly, so only he could hear. "Did you think I would run away? I thought you might realize this was all a dream." Her black eyes sparkled with humor. "I sometimes wonder if it is." The ceremony began. A high priest spoke ancient words in a language Tay could not understand. Lights danced around them in patterns that represented the moons, the stars, and the connection between souls. Then came the moment Tay had been dreading. In Valari tradition, the high priest announced to the crowd, the groom must now prove his worth by performing a feat of strength before the queen. Murmurs went through the crowd. Everyone remembered the rumors. The human was weak, small, ordinary. What could he possibly do to prove himself worthy of their queen? But before Tay could move, Yuna raised her hand. "Wait," she said. Her voice carried through the entire hall. "There will be no feat of strength today." Gasps came from the audience. Even the high priest looked shocked. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "this tradition has existed for thousands of years. It cannot simply be, 'I am the queen,'" Yuna interrupted. "I decide which traditions we follow and which we change." She turned to face the crowd. When she spoke again, her voice was powerful and commanding. "This human came to us with nothing. No army, no weapons, no wealth. He was small and weak by our standards. Many of you laughed at him. Some of you tried to kill him." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "But he faced every challenge we put before him. He defeated beasts with his bare hands. He solved puzzles that confounded our greatest minds. He walked through frozen wastelands without rest. And when assassins came for my life, he threw himself in front of their weapons." Yuna reached out and took Tay's other hand, holding both of them in hers. "He showed us something we had forgotten. True strength is not about muscles or weapons or power. True strength is about the will to continue, the refusal to give up, the determination to stand again after being knocked down." She looked directly at Tay now. Her eyes filled with an emotion he could not name. This human has more strength in his heart than 1,000 warriors have in their bodies. He does not need to prove anything to me or to anyone else. He has already proven everything that matters." Then Queen Yuna did something that no Valari monarch had ever done before. She knelt before her groom. The hall exploded with noise. People shouted in shock and outrage and amazement. The high priest dropped his ceremonial staff. Representatives from other worlds looked at each other in disbelief, but Tay barely noticed any of it. He was looking at Yuna, proud, powerful Queen Yuna, kneeling at his feet with her head bowed. "What are you doing?" he whispered. "What should have been done from the beginning," she answered. "I am showing you the respect you deserve. I am telling the galaxy that you are my equal, my partner, my chosen mate." Tears filled Tay's eyes. He bent down and gently lifted her chin until their eyes met. "You do not need to kneel for me," he said. "I am not a king or a warrior. I am just a teacher from a small town on a little planet." Yuna smiled. "And that is exactly why I love you." She stood up, and together, they turned to face the crowd. The noise had faded into a stunned silence. "Let it be known throughout the galaxy," Yuna announced. "Today, the Valari Empire does not just gain a prince. Today, we gain an ally. The human race may seem small and weak, but they carry a power that none of us fully understand. They do not surrender. They do not give up. They simply refuse to die." She raised Tay's hand into the air. "And now, they are part of our family." The crowd was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, one person began to clap. Then another. And another. The clapping grew until it became a roar of applause that shook the walls of the great hall. Tay looked out at the thousands of beings cheering for him for humanity and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Pride. The wedding feast lasted for 3 days. Tay met representatives from dozens of species, each one curious about humans and their strange power. He answered their questions as best he could, always humble, always honest. On the final night, Tay and Yuna stood on the balcony where the assassination attempt had happened. The 3 moons hung in the sky, painting everything in silver light. "Are you happy?" Yuna asked, wrapping 2 of her arms around him. "More than I ever thought possible," Tay answered. "Are you?" "Yes." She rested her head against his shoulder. "I thought I needed a warrior to protect me. Instead, I found something better. I found a partner who makes me want to be stronger myself." Tay smiled and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, Earth was spinning through space, unaware of what its ordinary teacher had accomplished. "My grandmother used to say that the universe has a plan for everyone," he said. "I never believed her. But now, I wonder if she was right." Yuna kissed his cheek softly. "She sounds like a wise woman." She was. "She would have liked you." They stood together in silence, watching the moons move across the purple sky. The galaxy had changed that night. Humanity was no longer a weak, insignificant species on a backward planet. They were part of the greatest empire in known space. And through one ordinary man, they had shown everyone what made them special. They were not the fastest. They were not the strongest. They were not the smartest or the most advanced. But they were the ones who remained, and they always would be. General Quan was arrested the next day. The assassins confessed under questioning, and every piece of evidence pointed to him. He was brought before Queen Yuna in chains, his head lowered in shame. "You tried to kill the man I chose," Yuna said. Her voice was cold as ice. "You betrayed my trust. You betrayed this empire. I did it for the empire." Quan shouted. "That human is weak. He will make us look foolish. Our enemies will laugh at us." Yuna stood up from her throne. She walked slowly toward Quan until she was standing directly in front of him. "That weak human took 2 energy blasts meant for me," she said quietly. He kept fighting with holes in his body. He killed one assassin and disabled 2 others with his bare hands. And he asked if I was safe before he passed out. She grabbed Quan's chin and forced him to look at her. Tell me, General, would you have done the same? Quan said nothing. His silence was answer enough. Take him to the prison cells, Yuna ordered. He will face trial in 1 week. As the guards dragged Quan away, Tay watched from the side of the throne room. He was still weak from his injuries, but he had insisted on being there. He needed to see justice served. After Quan was gone, Yuna dismissed everyone from the throne room. Everyone except Tay. Come with me, she said. There is something I want to show you. She led him through hallways he had never seen before. They went deep underground, past guards and security doors that required her personal codes to open. Finally, they reached a massive library filled with ancient books and glowing data crystals. This is the archive of knowledge, Yuna explained. It contains information about every species the Valari have encountered. Over 10,000 different races. She walked to a specific section and pulled out a crystal. When she activated it, holographic images appeared in the air. Images of Earth. Images of humans. After you were injured, I spent 3 days studying your species, Yuna said. I needed to understand how you did what you did. Tay looked at the images floating around them. He saw pictures of early humans hunting mammoths, soldiers marching through snow, athletes running races, doctors performing surgery. What did you learn? He asked. Yuna's eyes were wide with something like amazement. Humans are impossible, she said. By every logical measure, your species should have died out millions of years ago. You are small and weak. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Your babies take years to become independent. You need to sleep for 1/3 of your lives. She waved her hand, and more images appeared. But somehow, you became the dominant species on your planet. You survived ice ages and plagues and disasters that destroyed stronger creatures. And when I looked deeper, I found the reason why. She turned to face Tay directly. You simply refused to die. Tay smiled slightly. Is that so unusual? Yes. Yuna pointed to an image of human hunters chasing a deer. This is called persistence hunting. Your ancestors would chase animals for hours, sometimes days, until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. Most species cannot do this. Their bodies overheat. They need to rest. But humans just keep going. She showed another image, a human body with damage markers highlighted. Your bodies can heal from injuries that would kill any other species. Broken bones, torn muscles, even lost blood. You recover from things that should be fatal. And while you heal, you keep fighting. You keep surviving. Yuna stepped closer to Tay. Her voice became softer. The Valari are stronger than you. Faster than you. We live longer. We are smarter in many ways. But there is one thing we cannot do. What is that? Tay asked. We cannot endure like you do. Yuna looked down at her 4 hands. When a Valari is injured badly, we give up. Our minds tell us to stop, to accept death. It is written into our nature. But humans, you fight until your heart stops beating. And sometimes, even then, you come back. She looked back up at him. In all my years of studying other species, I have never encountered anything like this. Your people are not the strongest in the galaxy, but you may be the most dangerous. Tay was quiet for a moment. He thought about everything she had said. He thought about his grandmother, who had survived a war and a famine and decades of hard work, all while raising him alone after his parents died. There is a word in my language, he said finally. It is called Han. It is difficult to translate. It means something like grief mixed with hope. A deep sadness that also gives you the strength to continue. He touched the bandage on his shoulder. We carry our pain with us. We do not forget it or ignore it. We use it. Every loss, every failure, every wound becomes part of us. And it makes us stronger. Yuna listened carefully, absorbing every word. Your grandmother, she said. She carried this on? Yes, her whole life. She lost everything, her family, her home, her health. But she never stopped fighting. She never stopped hoping. And she raised me to be the same way. Tears formed in Tay's eyes. He did not try to hide them. That is why I am still here. That is why I did not die when those shots hit me. Because giving up would mean betraying her memory. It would mean that all her suffering was for nothing. Yuna reached out and gently touched his face. Her cool fingers wiped away his tears. I have ruled this empire for 70 years, she said. I have met thousands of potential mates. Warriors, kings, champions from across the stars. None of them made me feel what you make me feel. What do I make you feel? Safe. She smiled a real smile, warm and genuine. For the first time in my life, I feel truly safe with someone. She pulled him into an embrace. 4 arms wrapped around him, holding him close. Tay rested his head against her shoulder and closed his eyes. The final trial is in 3 days, Yuna whispered. I am supposed to test you one last time. But I already know the result. You do? Yes. She pulled back slightly to look into his eyes. You have already passed every test that matters. You have shown me courage, wisdom, patience, and sacrifice. You have shown me what it means to be human. Tay felt his heart beating fast. What happens now? Now, we prepare for the wedding. Yuna's smile grew wider. I hope your people are ready, Tay, because the galaxy is about to learn what Earth is capable of. Somewhere deep in his heart, Tay felt his grandmother smiling. 3 weeks passed after the first trial. Tay completed 2 more trials during that time. One tested his mind with puzzles that made his head hurt. The other tested his body by making him walk through a frozen wasteland for 3 days without food. He survived both. The Valari began looking at him differently. They no longer laughed when he walked by. Some of them even bowed their heads slightly, showing respect. Queen Yuna summoned Tay more often now. They ate dinner together in her private chambers. She asked him questions about Earth, about humans, about his life. He answered honestly, and she seemed to enjoy his honesty. You are strange, she told him one night. Other species try to impress me with their strength or their wealth. You do neither. I have no strength or wealth to offer, Tay said with a small smile. Then what do you have? Tay thought about the question carefully. I have patience. And I have stubbornness. My grandmother used to say I was like water. Soft and weak, but over time, water can wear down the hardest stone. Yuna stared at him with her dark eyes. She did not respond, but she did not look away either. Things changed between them after that night. Yuna began to seek his company more often. She showed him her favorite places in the palace. She told him about her childhood, about the weight of ruling an empire, about the loneliness of being queen. Tay listened. He did not try to fix her problems or give advice. He simply listened, and somehow, that was exactly what she needed. Not everyone was happy about this development. General Quan was the commander of the Valari military. He was old and powerful, with scars covering his blue skin. He had served Yuna's family for generations, and he hated the idea of a human marrying his queen. This is an insult, he told the other generals during a secret meeting. A weak, pathetic creature from a backward planet. He will make us look foolish in front of the entire galaxy. The other generals nodded in agreement. They respected Yuna, but they could not accept Tay as her husband. Something must be done, General Quan said. The human must be eliminated before the final trial. They made their plan carefully. It would happen during the Festival of Moons, when the entire empire celebrated the alignment of Varos's 3 moons. There would be crowds everywhere. Security would be difficult. An assassination would be easy to disguise as an accident. Tay knew nothing about the plot. He was too busy preparing for the final trial, which would take place after the festival. He spent his days exercising and his nights reading about Valari history and customs. The Festival of Moons was beautiful. The entire capital city was decorated with lights that floated in the air. Music played from every corner. Valari danced in the streets, their forearms moving in patterns Tay could not understand. Queen Yuna invited Tay to watch the festival from her private balcony. It was high above the city, with a perfect view of everything below. "Do you have festivals like this on Earth?" she asked. "We have many festivals," Tay said, "but none as beautiful as this." Yuna smiled. It was a rare thing she did not smile often. But when she did, her whole face changed. She looked younger, softer, almost vulnerable. "I am glad you came here," she said quietly. "I did not expect to feel this way about a human." Tay felt his heart beat faster. "What way?" Before Yuna could answer, Tay saw something that made his blood run cold. A shadow moved on the rooftop across from them. The moonlight reflected off something metal. A weapon. Tay did not think. He did not plan. He simply acted. He threw himself in front of Yuna just as the first shot was fired. The energy blast hit him in the shoulder. Pain exploded through his body worse than anything he had ever felt. He heard Yuna scream his name, but her voice seemed far away. Another shot came. This one hit his leg. He fell to his knees but did not fall completely. He stayed in front of Yuna, blocking her with his body. "Get down," he shouted, pushing her toward the floor. Guards rushed onto the balcony, but the assassins were already moving. 3 of them jumped from the rooftop onto the balcony, their weapons ready. One of them aimed at Yuna. Tay grabbed a heavy metal chair and threw it at the assassin. His injured arm screamed in protest, but the chair hit its target. The assassin stumbled and fell over the railing. The other 2 assassins attacked together. Tay had no weapon, no training, and 2 serious wounds. Blood ran down his arm and leg, leaving a trail on the floor, but he did not stop. He ducked under the first attack and kicked the assassin in the knee. The creature fell, and Tay grabbed its weapon. He did not know how to use it properly, but he swung it like a club, hitting the second assassin in the head. More guards arrived. They surrounded the remaining assassins and took them down quickly. Tay stood in the middle of the chaos, breathing heavily. His vision was blurring. The blood loss was making him dizzy, but he stayed on his feet. "Tay." Yuna rushed to his side. Her hands pressed against his wounds, trying to stop the bleeding. "Get the healers, now." "I am fine," Tay said, even though he clearly was not. "Are you hurt?" Yuna stared at him in disbelief. "You are dying, and you ask if I am hurt?" "That was the only question that mattered," Tay said. Then his legs gave out, and everything went dark. He woke up 3 days later in a medical chamber. Machines surrounded him, pumping healing fluids into his body. His shoulder and leg were wrapped in glowing bandages. Yuna was sitting beside him. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. It seemed like she had not slept in days. "You stayed here the whole time?" Tay asked weakly. "Yes," she said simply. "You are the queen. You have important things to do. Nothing is more important than this." Yuna reached out and took his hand. Her blue skin was cool against his warm fingers. "You almost died protecting me. No one has ever done that before." Tay squeezed her hand gently. Anyone would have done the same. "No," Yuna said firmly. "They would not. I have seen warriors from across the galaxy. Strong, powerful creatures who could crush you with one hand. None of them would take a wound for someone else. None of them would keep fighting after being shot twice. She leaned closer, her black eyes studying his face. What are you, Tay? What are humans really? Tay thought about the question. He remembered his grandmother's stories, his history lessons, everything he knew about his species. We are survivors, he said finally. We are not the fastest or the strongest, but we do not give up. When we are hurt, we keep moving. When we are knocked down, we get back up. We adapt, we endure, and eventually we win. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She bowed her head to him. I understand now, she whispered. I understand what makes humans different. Outside the medical chamber, the guards who witnessed the bow spread the story throughout the palace. By morning, everyone on Varos knew what the human groom had done, and everyone knew that Queen Yuna had bowed to him. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Tay woke up before the sun rose. He had not slept well. The bed was too soft, and strange sounds came from outside his window all night. But he got up anyway. He washed his face with cold water and put on the clothes the servants had left for him. They came for him at dawn. 4 guards, each one carrying weapons that glowed with blue light. They did not speak to him. They simply pointed toward the door and expected him to follow. The palace was busy, even at this early hour. The Lari servants rushed through the hallways, preparing for something big. When they saw Tay, they stopped and stared. Some of them whispered to each other. One young servant pointed at him and laughed. Tay kept walking. He had been laughed at before. It did not bother him anymore. The guards led him to a massive arena. It was open to the sky, with seats rising high on all sides. Thousands of Valari had already gathered to watch. They cheered when they saw Tay enter, but it was not a friendly cheer. It was the sound of people expecting entertainment. Queen Yuna sat on a special platform above the arena. She wore different armor today, silver instead of black. Her 4 hands rested on the railings as she looked down at Tay. Human, she called out. Her voice echoed through the arena. Today you face the first trial. The trial of beasts. A door on the opposite side of the arena began to open. Tay heard growling from inside. Something was coming. In our culture, a potential mate must prove they can protect their family, Yuna continued. You will face 3 beasts. You will have no weapons. If you survive, you pass the trial. Tay looked around the arena. The walls were smooth and high. There was nowhere to hide. He had nothing but his hands and his wits. The first beast emerged from the darkness. It was like a wolf, but much larger. Its fur was black, and its eyes burned red. Poison dripped from its fangs, leaving smoking holes in the ground. That the crowd roared with excitement. Tay's heart pounded in his chest. Every part of him wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. So instead, he watched the beast carefully. It moved slowly at first, circling him, testing him. Tay remembered something his grandmother once told him. Animals attack when they sense fear. Stand tall, and they will hesitate. Tay stood tall. He kept his eyes on the beast. He did not move. The wolf creature growled louder. It expected him to run. When he did not, it became confused. It circled closer, snapping its jaws. Tay noticed something. The creature favored its left side. When it turned, it always turned left. There was probably an old injury there, a weakness. The beast finally attacked. It leaped through the air with its jaws open wide. Tay dove to the right, the creature's weak side. He rolled across the ground as the beast crashed into the wall behind him. It yelped in pain and turned around, angrier than before. But Tay had already grabbed a handful of sand from the arena floor. When the beast charged again, he threw the sand directly into its eyes. The creature screamed and stumbled blindly. Tay ran past it and climbed onto its back. He wrapped his arms around its neck and held on with all his strength. The beast thrashed wildly, trying to throw him off. But Tay did not let go. He squeezed tighter and tighter. Minutes passed. The beast grew weaker. Finally, it collapsed onto the ground, unconscious. The arena fell silent. Nobody had expected the human to win, but there was no time to rest. The second beast was already coming out. This one was different, a creature with 6 legs and a shell-like armor. Its tail ended in a sharp spike that glistened with venom. It was faster than the wolf beast, and smarter. It did not circle. It attacked immediately. Tay barely dodged the first strike. The tail spike hit the ground next to his foot, cracking the stone. He jumped back and kept moving, but the creature followed quickly. There was no trick this time. No sand to throw. Tay could only run and dodge, again and again. The crowd began laughing. They thought he was just delaying the inevitable. But Tay was watching, learning. He noticed that after each strike, the creature's tail took a moment to pull back. There was a brief window when it could not attack. He waited for the right moment. When the tail struck again, Tay did not jump away. He jumped forward, rolling under the creature's body. Before it could react, he grabbed one of its legs and pulled with all his weight. The creature lost its balance and fell onto its side. Its own tail spike came down and pierced its own shell. It screamed and stopped moving. The crowd was no longer laughing. They were watching in complete silence. Queen Yuna leaned forward on her platform. Her black eyes were wide with something Tay could not identify. Surprise? Interest? He did not know that the third beast was the worst. It had no solid form. It was made of shadows and smoke, with dozens of eyes floating within its darkness. It could not be touched or grabbed. It could only be feared. Tay felt the fear immediately. It washed over him like cold water. His legs shook. His hands trembled. Memories flooded his mind, his grandmother's funeral, the loneliness of his empty apartment, every failure and disappointment in his life. The shadow beast was feeding on his fear, growing stronger with each passing second. Tay fell to his knees. Tears ran down his face. He wanted to give up. He wanted to lie down and let the darkness take him. But then he remembered something else. His grandmother's voice speaking to him on her final night. Tay, she had said, fear is just a feeling. It cannot hurt you unless you let it. When you are afraid, keep moving. Keep breathing. Fear will pass, but you will remain. Tay took a deep breath. Then another. And another. He stood up slowly, even though his legs still shook. He walked toward the shadow beast, even though every part of him screamed to run away. The creature seemed confused. Its victims always ran. They always tried to escape. This human was walking toward it. Tay kept walking. The fear did not go away, but he moved through it anyway. Step by step. Breath by breath. When he reached the shadow beast, he did something nobody expected. He closed his eyes. I am not afraid of you, he said quietly. I have been afraid my whole life. Of being alone. Of being forgotten. Of not being enough. But I am still here. I am still standing. The shadow beast screamed a terrible sound that shook the entire arena. But Tay did not open his eyes. He did not run. You cannot hurt me, he said, because I have already faced the worst fear of all. I have faced myself. And I survived. The shadow beast began to shrink. Without fear to feed on, it had no power. It grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. Tay opened his eyes. The arena was silent. Every Valari was staring at him with their mouths open. Queen Yuna rose from her seat. She looked at Tay for a long moment. Then she spoke, and her voice was different now. Softer, almost respectful. "The human passes the first trial," she announced. The crowd did not cheer. They were too shocked to make any sound. But as the guards led Tay out of the arena, he heard something that made his heart beat faster. Queen Yuna was smiling. The stars had always seemed beautiful to Tay. As a child growing up in a small town near Bizen, he would sit on his grandmother's roof and count them. He never imagined that one day, those stars would become his new home. The year was 2847, and humanity had finally made contact with alien life. The Valari Empire controlled over 200 star systems. Their ships were massive. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. And their queen wanted a human husband. Tay was 32 years old. He worked as a teacher at a small school. He taught history to children who barely listened. He lived alone in a tiny apartment. He had no family left after his grandmother died 3 years ago. He was, by all measures, an ordinary man. That was exactly why Earth's government chose him. The message came on a Tuesday morning. 2 men in black suits knocked on his door. They told him that Queen Yuna of the Valari Empire had demanded a human groom. It was part of a peace treaty. Without this marriage, the Valari would not protect Earth from other hostile species in the galaxy. Tay laughed at first. He thought it was a joke. But the men did not smile. "Why me?" he asked. "Because you have no connections," one of the men said. "No family. No important friends. If this fails, Earth loses nothing valuable." The words hurt, but Tay understood. He was expendable. He was nobody. And that made him perfect for this mission. 3 weeks later, Tay stood inside a Valari transport ship. He wore simple clothes, a white shirt and dark pants. He carried nothing except a small bag with some books and a photograph of his grandmother. The ship moved faster than light, bending space around it. Tay felt sick the entire journey. The Valari homeworld was called Veros. It was a planet of purple skies and silver oceans. The buildings reached so high that their tops disappeared into the clouds. Everything was made of metal and crystal. Everything was cold and sharp. Tay stepped off the ship and immediately felt wrong. The gravity was slightly stronger here. The air tasted different, sweeter, but also thinner. He had trouble breathing at first. Hundreds of Valari watched him arrive. They were tall creatures, standing at least 7 feet high. Their skin was pale blue, almost like ice. Their eyes were large and completely black, with no whites visible. They had 4 arms each and moved with a grace that made Tay feel clumsy. Nobody spoke. They just stared. Tay walked forward, trying not to shake. A path opened before him, leading to a massive palace made of black stone. Armed guards stood on both sides. Their weapons hummed with energy. Inside the palace, everything was even more impressive. The ceiling was so high that Tay could not see it. Lights floated in the air without any wires or supports. The floor was smooth like glass. At the end of a long hall sat Queen Yuna. She was different from the other Valari. Her skin was darker blue, almost purple. Golden patterns decorated her face and arms. She wore armor that seemed to be made of living metal. It moved and shifted as she breathed. Her 4 arms rested on the sides of her throne, each hand holding a different weapon. She looked at Tay like he was an insect. "This is the human?" she asked. Her voice echoed through the hall. It was deep and powerful. "Yes, Your Majesty," said one of her advisors. "This is the one Earth sent." Yuna stood up. She was incredibly tall, almost 8 feet. She walked down from her throne and circled around Tay slowly. He forced himself to stand still. "He is small," she said. "Yes, Your Majesty. He is weak. I can see his bones through his skin. Humans are a fragile species, Your Majesty." Yuna stopped in front of Tay. She leaned down until her face was close to his. Her black eyes studied him carefully. Why did your planet send their weakest? She asked directly to him. Tay swallowed hard. His throat was dry, but something inside him refused to look away from her eyes. I am not the weakest, he said quietly. I am simply the most willing. A murmur went through the crowd of Valari watching. Some of them laughed. Others seemed surprised that he could speak at all. Yuna did not laugh. She tilted her head slightly, like a predator examining prey. Willing to die? She asked. Willing to try, Tay answered. For a long moment, Yuna said nothing. Then she straightened up and returned to her throne. The human will stay in the East Tower, she announced. He will be given food and water suitable for his species. Tomorrow, the trials will begin. Tay felt his stomach drop. Trials? One of the advisors stepped forward. He was older than the others, with deep lines on his blue face. You did not think our queen would simply accept you, did you? He said. Many have tried to earn her hand in marriage. Warriors from across the galaxy. Champions of 100 worlds. They all failed. What happened to them? Tay asked. The advisor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. They died. Guards took Tay to his room in the East Tower. It was large and empty. The bed was too big for him. The window looked out over the silver ocean far below. Tay sat on the edge of the bed and looked at his grandmother's photograph. I might have made a mistake, he whispered to her. Image. But he did not cry. He did not panic. He simply sat there, thinking about what tomorrow would bring. Outside, the purple sky turned dark. 3 moons rose over the horizon. Somewhere in the palace, Queen Yuna was planning his first trial. She expected him to fail. She expected him to die like all the others. She did not know that Tay had something the other champions never had. He had spent his entire life being underestimated. He had learned to survive not by being strong, but by being patient, by enduring, by refusing to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. Tomorrow, the trials would begin, and Tay would show them all what a human could do.